We are not all right. We are not all right when we see young girls pulled from their home and dragged through the streets. We are not all right when we see grandmothers being pulled away from their homes and children shot in front of their families. We are not all right when right here in the city of New York, you have those who celebrate at the same time when the devastation is taking place in our city. This was intentional. This was bitter. This was nasty. This was something that shows Hamas must be disbanded and destroyed immediately.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams, thank you so much for joining us during these difficult times.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you.
Your unequivocal show of support, sir, last week resonated with many Israelis, many Americans. You've obviously been a longtime supporter of Israel, of the Jewish community. Can you tell us what led to that speech that you gave?
It impacted all humanity. When I saw children slaughtered and they were dragged through the streets, I thought of my son. When I saw the stoic look of a grandmother who was a Holocaust survivor, I thought about my grandmother and my mother and my family members. And it impacted me deeply because we saw one of the most draconian actions that has ever taken place on a people. And I wanted to really personalize and communicate to the Israeli people and to all people that the actions of Hamas must be addressed, they must be disbanded, and it really impacted the entire globe.
Mm-hmm. Your main theme was we New Yorkers are not all right as long as you Israelis are not all right. I do want to ask you what you make of the pro-Hamas rally that we saw in New York, and how can you help the Jewish community feel safe during these very tense times?
Well, and that is my job here in New York City. We have the largest Jewish population outside of Israel live here in New York City. And we immediately put in place actions, not only to deal with the real fear, but also the feeling that people were having of uncertainty after a communication went out to cause a disorder for the most part. And then we went and protected many of our sensitive locations. That included all houses of worship, specifically our synagogues. But the police department understood the challenges we were facing, and we stepped up to ensure the safety of New York City residents in general, but specifically the Jewish community.
Do you feel that this is, as you said in your speech, indeed like 9/11 in its effect on the world, on this in our community? Do you feel like there's a comparison to be made between the two events?
Well, clearly this was Israel's 9/11. Mm-hmm. The number of people who died and the method in which they died, I believe, exceeds a 9/11 because it was a torturous type death that many of the people experienced. And so we had to have that same level of alert and awareness, because you don't know what other forms of attacks would take place in an organized manner, but also with what we call those lone wolves that are basically responding to the call of hatred. And we wanted to make sure that we looked at both. And it's the same level of pain that Americans experienced when our trade centers were attacked. That is what I felt the Jewish men and women of this city and of this country really felt as though they were experiencing and going through.
And also, finally, I think it was a very emotional part of your speech. You mentioned the long struggle of the Jewish community side by side with the struggle for civil rights.
Yes, a long history of the Jewish community and the African-American community in general, not only for marching with Dr. King and standing side by side to our civil rights struggles, but so many other great Jewish leaders. There's a long, deep relationship between the Jewish community and the African-American community. And there was an obligation of saying to our Jewish brothers and sisters, we felt your pain. And we understand what you're going through because we went through those horrific types of conditions. And that is in no way of stating that Hamas is representative of Islam. Hamas is representative of terrorism. And I really call on my Muslim brothers and sisters to stand up and really separate themselves from the actions of Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization, and it must be destroyed. And we are also calling on people to identify for it for what it is. And all people of faith should stand up and identify it for what it is.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams, thank you so much. You've been here a few times. We're looking forward to welcoming you during better days. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you. Take care.